let's move, if we can, to Victor, Dr. Victor Pineda, if you are on the line, President of World Enabled, and the President of the Global Alliance on Accessible Technologies and Environments. Victor is a great friend of many of the initiatives that we have seen taken up in this conversation. Just wanted to ask, Victor, you are online.
Yes, hi, do you hear me?
Yes, I do. Hi, Victor. Good to see you after Abu Dhabi.
Likewise.
All the best. We are all looking at questions around sustainable, safe, and inclusive cities under SDG 11. This is something we are all looking at, but we continue to see the challenges around inclusivity in design and in implementation. And I really wanted to commend you as well on the webinar series that you've put together with World Enabled, Cities for All, looking at how your social media campaigns are really changing the conversation around inclusion and COVID and transport, and how cities are really taking to look at some of these issues in a very different light. So, our time is somewhat limited, but I think we would all very much like to hear your perspective on partnerships around these
Sure.
issues, how you see the dimensions of this crisis from your organization's perspective, and any opportunities that we can take in terms of mitigating risks or moving the dialogue forward. Over to you.
Well, thank you so much. Um, it's a great honor to be here with my dear friend Amelia. Thank you, Amelia, for inviting us. Thank you to your Habitat and Metropolis and longtime partners. I really appreciate hearing the perspectives from the various speakers. I think one of the things that we have to consider is that this marks an inflection point in the way that we've built our cities, and it brings to light the vulnerabilities that have created the social disruption and even the economic disruption that this pandemic has brought forth. I am a urban planning expert. I teach urban planning at the University of California, Berkeley, and I advise governments and cities on how to make sure their cities are more inclusive, accessible, and resilient. Um, One of the most fundamental questions we have to ask ourselves is, who is our city for? And how do we adjust, adapt, and then recover from this crisis in a way that makes us stronger? How do we build back better? I don't have to go into the details around why persons with disabilities are higher at risk, why persons with disabilities have lower outcomes in education, employment, health, public participation. Those are realities that aren't about a fundamental vulnerability of these people, but the context that creates those vulnerabilities. What we have to consider is that 1 in every 7 people, on average, in the world lives with a disability. And that's about 15 to 20% of citizens in most major cities live with a challenge. They don't have to look like me and use a wheelchair and a machine to breathe. They can be individuals with dementia. They can be individuals with challenges with hearing, with seeing, with mobility, with moving around, with remembering. So as we develop policies in the impact of COVID-19, there's tremendous hardships, specifically on the issue of mobility, that we saw with hundreds of thousands of people overnight not being able to access their home care workers. Because the home care workers in India, for example, were all left out of the decree as essential workers. So the police was stopping people around India from getting to their clients. There's also issues of mobility for individuals that are on the autism spectrum that have to deal with the very routines that have all been disrupted. So how do we ensure that transportation officials also understand the dimension of the population that might be incredibly confused by all of these new restrictions. So how do we create redundancy, compassion, empathy, but also effective checklists that city officials can ensure that they're not leaving anyone behind. But let me just leave you with a very simple set of recommendations that we are going to be discussing today um, in our webinar series. These ultimately are meant to help us understand that we have to ensure that all pandemic responses related to transport are disability inclusive. That means through consultation, partnerships with people with disabilities. In transportation, the continued access to the services is very important because people with disabilities are not only effectively completely marginalized in general, but also dealing with additional barriers. Transportation becomes very important. Lastly, we have to have the public information on this accessible and that communication messaging can reach all people. I want to thank you again for inviting us. My webinar is starting just right now, and we will have Piero from the City of Milan, Chief Resilience Officer from the City of Milan, provide us an overview of their recovery strategy from an inclusion perspective. We're here with the Disability Commissioner from Chicago and former Disability Commissioner from Chicago, how they're partnering with local organizations, and finally hear from a member of a global network on disability disaster response. We hope to have Amelia and some of you as well join us in future webinars so we can hear how your city is tackling the pandemic response from an inclusion perspective.
Well, Victor, you're going to draw away our crowd for the last 10 minutes.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and especially for leaving us with some very concrete recommendations, and look forward to following your next webinars in person. Thanks so much, and all the best.